And as the first date of the Anti-Fascist Youth and Students World Congress is on our way in Caracas, we go live with our correspondent Belén de los Santos. Hi Belén, and share with us all the details you have from today.
Hello Anna, how are you? Exactly as you were saying, this Congress that summons the youth in their struggle against fascism is underway in Caracas. This was the first day that is still going on. We have working tables underway that are debating some of the topics that are most relevant in the struggle against fascism. And the youth from over 70 countries are debating topics such as the environment. They are also debating topics on women and gender around the world. They are also, because it's the youth in particular, they are debating topics related, for example, to the student movement around the world, and also, of course, the ways in which internationally to cope with things that are going on right now in our world, like an ongoing genocide in the Middle East, affecting in particular, but not only the Palestinian people. So to continue on that topic, we have with us today Bandar Al-Sharif. He is the spokesperson for the Association Against Zionism and Racism in Jordan. So, Mr. Al-Sharif, thank you for joining us here in teleSUR English. And I would like to start by asking you, we live in such a world in which most of the world is witnessing an ongoing genocide right now, and the international organizations seem to be either helpless or accomplices to such crimes. So what does, in that context, what does this Congress, the possibility of the youth coming together to debate their common struggle, what does that mean in that context?
Actually, this is the highest level of speech with no limit, basically. Venezuela in this conference is providing us with a platform with no limits. We as youth from all over the world, Palestine and many countries, coming here to speak about our causes with no limits, with no rules, with no any introduction from any power. So the level of freedom that we witness here in Venezuela, we didn't witness it in anywhere else in our countries, in anywhere else in the world.
Right, and that is something so important to point out, right? In the face of a global media that sometimes takes for its own the word freedom and applies it only for some certain liberal policies, and they say that that is freedom, and I really like to highlight what you were saying, the possibility of discussing these topics and really trying to build common strategies. So in that case, and speaking about the struggle that the people from the Middle East are carrying out in solidarity with peoples from all over the world, what do you think that could come out of a Congress like this in terms of international solidarity?
I think the international solidarity playing a basic role in supporting us as Palestinians and supporting the Palestinian issue in general. Because Palestinian issue is the international issue. It's not only humanitarian, it's the last occupation, direct occupation in the 21st century. We are, for example, in Jordan living the third generation of refugees, and we are speaking of all over the world, looking for platforms or countries or media to adopt us and adopt our thoughts. What we are witnessing here is a huge solidarity, especially I think number one issue in this conference is the Palestinian issue, because it's crucial to talk about it, because we are witnessing a genocide happening on our bare eyes right now, regardless the genocide happening 100 years ago. So we are talking about generations of struggle. Venezuela now is in our side. Venezuela is collecting 500 people from around 100 countries. These participants are leaders in their countries, are leaders of groups, leaders of parties. they can push in their groups, in their countries, to push the international community towards stopping the genocide and cease fire. This is what Palestinian people need right now, and for the long term, of course, Palestine needs liberation.
Right, and you were saying that maybe the key topic in this Congress has to do with the Palestinian struggle and the need for Palestinian freedom, and that doesn't have to be in a poster, it doesn't have to be a topic of the debate. You can see it in the T-shirts of many of the youth around us. You can see it in the kufiyas and Palestinian flags that are really all over the Congress, and it has, of course, because of the context, become a central topic, and we've seen it throughout the year how the youth from all over the world, maybe even youth that before were not as involved and did not have as much knowledge about the Palestinian history and struggle, how that fiber was very touched, was really moving for a lot of the youth and peoples of the world. Do you think that there is a possibility of common struggle, a possibility that the people of the global south can see that this is not just a fight of one people in particular, but it's the fight against imperialism, against colonialism, and finally unite under one cause, and that is the Palestinian cause?
Actually, it can help in two ways, in the short term and the long term. In the short term, the youth, the people, participants, they're all youth people, they can push on their governments, on their communities towards the Palestinian demand. In the long term, we can say that this young people, they have a high awareness and they are leaders in their communities, in their groups. So we expect that these participants today, the youth who's participating in this conference today, will be the leaders of their countries on the long term. And then we'll see much more solidarity, not only from groups and parties and individuals and people. We will see a solidarity, a real solidarity from different governments in the world who is not supporting us right now, and we are depending on that for future. And we hope that we are the last generation of refuge, and we will witness the liberation of Palestine from the river to the sea as the limit that Venezuela is taking officially and governmentally.
It's definitely a hope of all of us in the global south. So thank you, Mr. Al-Sharif, for joining us in teleSUR English. That was Bandar Al-Sharif, spokesperson for the Association Against Zionism and Racism in Jordan. And that, Anna, was just another one of the testimonies from the delegates that have come here to Caracas to share their experiences and continue building a roadmap for the future in the fight against fascism, understanding that this is a common struggle. This does not have to do with one country alone. It has to do with something that is happening worldwide, and only a worldwide response can be viable in that sense. In one of the tables earlier, one of the delegates was saying something very similar to what we were just discussing. They were saying, well, the youth that are in the streets today will be the politicians of tomorrow. So that is the hope of this Congress, that tomorrow a future is built in which all these Palestinian flags and flags from all over the global south are standing high, and we really build a future that is a future against fascism. So that is a little bit from what is happening here in Caracas. We will continue to bring you all the information as usual. Now I go back to you.
Thank you, Belen. And as the first date of the anti-fascist youth and students world congress is on our way in Caracas, we go live for updates with our correspondent Belen de los Santos. Hi, Belen, tell us all the details you can share with us.
Hello, studios. We are here. We continue here in Caracas at the Youth Congress of the Anti-Fascist Congress that is underway here in Caracas, as Venezuela has summoned over 1,000 delegates, that is from 70 countries. And this was the first day of the Congress. We are here. We continue to see the activities that are underway, delegates from all over the world, as we were saying, specifically from the global south, but really from everywhere that come here to share their perspectives, their fights in their own territories, in their own countries, to analyze and discuss what does the fight against fascism mean today, mean in every country, in every territory, at a world context that we know is very complex, and many countries have suffered the consequences from this. So this Congress summons the youth to come together and think the possible alternatives to really face these challenges. And with us at this moment, we have Grayson Walker. He is a law graduate from the United States, an attorney, and also a political analyst. So first of all, thank you, Grayson, for joining us in teleSUR English. And to begin, I would like to ask you about your experience. How have you lived the day, the experience of really joining together with other delegates from all over the world?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this channel and for welcoming me to Venezuela. I'm honored to be here as a part of an American delegation. Our country obviously has a very unique role, especially as it concerns world imperialism. So I'm very happy to be here. Regarding my impressions of the country and just being here, it's one thing to be reading about anti-imperialism, to be writing about it, to be working on this outside, but to be here in the center of the Bolivarian Revolution, to be amidst so many anti-imperialist students and youth, it really shows you that Chavismo is not dead. And the revolution is living on not just here in Venezuela, but it's inspiring people around the world. Not just from Russia, Vietnam, Iran, but also us in the United States who are looking for some alternative to the two-party duopoly, which is as alien to us as it is to the countries that it occupies.
Of course, and as we were saying, we're living at some very particular and difficult times around the world with, for example, an ongoing genocide that is happening right now. Palestine is one of the main topics of discussion. It's around the world. We see it in t-shirts. We see people walking around with flags. And it's been a worldwide struggle to denounce the genocide, to denounce the financing, for example, of not only the genocide, but other armed conflicts around the world. So from an analyst's perspective, what does this sort of Congress that brings together experiences from the global south, experiences of resistance, what does this mean, and what's the importance of this at a moment like this?
I think there's two things that are very important for international solidarity regarding the genocide and also the ongoing wars, not just regarding the ongoing funding of the Ukrainian regime and the Russian special military operation, but also these other wars around the world that are part of imperialism. The first important thing is that it gives voice to the people of these conflicts who are not otherwise able to be expressed in the mainstream media that's dominated the imperial core. So by giving these people in Palestine and Gaza a voice here, for instance, it shows them that they are not alone, that their fight is not something that they are solely David versus Goliath, but they have 9/10 of the world behind them, and that it only requires awakening that 9/10 to realize what power that they have. The other prong, I think, to this is that we need to learn from each other and learn from the experiences of various movements around the world so we can integrate that into our own. Chavistas should learn from those in Gaza who are waging resistance against the Israeli occupation. And those in the United States should learn, not just get information about, what their occupied government is doing in these countries, but also should learn the tactics and the theories and the struggle from these countries in order to integrate that into their own experience. Because in the US, we have, of course, also disgruntlement against the state, but it's not channeled in a way that's historically what we could say is maybe progressive. It's sometimes channeled in ways that is antithetical to their own interests. So learning from the experiences of other people around the world and integrating that into our own, that is a core part of the anti-imperialist struggle.
And you were talking from a United States perspective, and I would like to add, and I'll also just ask you, in this context, what does it mean to participate in the anti-imperialist struggle from the United States? You were talking about the learning process from other movements all over the country, but how's the struggle like in the United States? You've just come from an election process. You're facing a new mandate of Donald Trump in the coming years. How do you see the movement do you see hope that the anti-imperialist struggle will grow? We've seen great mobilizations in favor of Palestine, for example. What does it mean to carry that flag in that territory?
Well, I think anti-imperialism in the American context, uh, in our view, is inherently patriotic position, because the United States government, what it calls itself a democracy, does not reflect a popular will. If you want evidence, look at the fact that both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris were the two nominees, wildly unpopular candidates. Kamala Harris, who wasn't even properly vetted as part of the democratic process. So I think that we need to essentially view this as one struggle. The imperialist system is one system. Um, NATO imperialism, the genocide in Gaza, this is one conflict. And the American people are a part of that conflict. Their struggle against their own government, their own discontent is tied up with the oppression in Gaza, with the war in the Ukraine. And I think that integrating this into our own struggle from a patriotic, popular position against the states, to understand this is one movement, that the youth of the world is united against this system that is also alien to us. That's very important. Of course, it's the task of the left to articulate this. And the American left has trouble doing this. There are factions in the American left that often appear very anti-imperialist, but in fact, they spout the same ideology of the Democratic Party and the ruling establishment. So, although this election wasn't necessarily a happy one, at the very least, because the Democratic Party has been destroyed, decimated because of this, discredited, it at least opens the space for something new to emerge. It allows for a new left that is independent of the Democratic and Republican parties, that is rooted in the working class of our country, and which can tie the national struggle in the United States with the anti-imperialist struggle around the world. So I think that there are lots of lessons to learn, but we have a very long road ahead.
We will continue to analyze and hope that effectively something new emerges. Definitely the struggle in the global south has a lot to think about. Its solidarity and the possibilities of solidarities with the working class in the United States. And so we truly appreciate your work and whatever you're doing there. So thank you, Grayson, for joining us in teleSUR English. And we go now back to studios before saying that the Congress is ending its first day, but will continue on Saturday. And as you were saying, and as you were seeing, this side of discussions are the ones that are being carried out at this Youth Anti-Fascist Congress here in Venezuela. The idea that the different struggles around the world in their fight against fascism can come together to debate these ideas and also analyze possible strategies for the years to come. That's the idea and the goal for this event, that the youth, the young generations from every country can build and think and draw up a map for the coming years around the world. So now we go back to you.
Thank you, Ellen, for bringing us all the details regarding the first days of the Anti-Fascism Days of Student World. And we regain the topic. As the first date of the International World Anti-Fascism Youth Congress is underway in Caracas, we go live for updates with our correspondent Belén de los Santos. Hi, Belén. Hello, and give us your remarks.
Hello, studios. We continue here in Caracas as the Youth Congress, the Anti-Fascist Congress that is gathering here in the Venezuelan capital is underway. We've been reporting with the testimonies, we've been hearing from different people from around the world. As we have been saying, over 1,000 delegates have gathered in Caracas and will continue to gather tomorrow as well to discuss the most relevant topics regarding the social context that we are living in right now worldwide and in the struggle against fascism, and also exchanging experiences and bringing their visions from different corners of the world. And in this case, we are joined by Shane Savory, a student from St. Lucia. Welcome, Shane. Thank you for being here with us in teleSUR English. Please tell us your experience at this Congress. How has the day been like meeting delegates from all over the world? What's your experience so far?
Well, thank you so much for having me. So I arrived in Venezuela on Wednesday, and honestly, coming into it, I didn't have a ton of expectations. I said, you know what, I'm just going to go into it and experience it for myself, the first thing that I've realized is just how massive this is. I mean, I come from a very tiny island in the Caribbean. I mean, Caracas is bigger than my entire country, so just taking all of that in has been so interesting. But it's also been really interesting being somebody who is from the Caribbean community. We have these very close ties with Venezuela, and a lot of what you study at school and what you see in the news can be one way, but then coming here and actually seeing the place for yourself and actually meeting people and talking to people, it's an entirely different perspective. So being here and being able to talk not just with Venezuelans, but from people from all around the world and being able to hear so many languages in one place, it's been an extremely enlightening experience, and I'm so glad that I came.
Exactly. So we've been hearing from delegates from all over the world with their own particular experiences of what the anti-imperialist struggle, the anti-fascist struggle means for them. So you come from St. Lucia. I would like to ask you, for this Caribbean country, in your experience, what does the anti-fascist movement mean in your case?
I think that as a very small developing country, we're still in the process of finding our place in the world, especially among us who are, young people. I'll be voting in my first election in the next couple of years. So among my peers, I think it's really important that we start to find that footing to understand what is going on in different places around the world, despite what certain media may be or what our parents might believe and things like that. So I'm really just learning about the experiences of so many people around the world whose lives have been shaped by so many political movements and so many things that have been happening worldwide, and learning how all of that is connected. So it's not only just an experience to learn about how others are living and how we can understand and help them and what we have in common, but I also think that it's important for my country, which is less than 50 years old, that we can understand how we can stay on the right path of government and how the youth can lead the country moving forward.
And do you see a hopeful youth in that sense? We're living in a very particular world context, and a lot of the media coverage and really a lot of the things that are happening around the world are so difficult that some may think that we are in a sort of like apocalyptic era. However, we have the youth coming together, and of course we're seeing different alternatives and perspectives of future. How do you see that future as part of the young generation?
I think that this generation is very interconnected, especially with being able to communicate with people from all around the world through social media and being able to educate ourselves in that way. So I find that a lot of young people that you meet now worldwide are more politically active than ever. And if we have a question, if there's something that we want to know, that it's easier than ever for us to just find that out. So I think that it really is just a matter of young people being more curious about it and having that kind of intellectual vitality of wanting to understand more, of being able to compare and think for themselves. So all of the information and all of the resources that we need to become more politically active are there. It's really just a matter of young people having that strength within them to go out there and figure out what it is and then take action.
Thank you, Shani, for joining us here. That was our comrade from St. Lucia. Just one more perspective of the ones that we have been hearing at this Youth Congress, the Anti-Fascist Congress that Caracas is holding, and we will continue to gather around this perspective from different corners of the world on how to think and continue building in the struggle against fascism. Now we go back to you.
Thank you, Belen, for all the information you gave us. The spokespersons for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Li Yan, supports the International Criminal Court's final judgments on Netanyahu and Gallant, urging the ICC to hold its stance grounded in equity and justice.
China backs up every effort made by the international community on the Palestinian issue, which has to reach equity and justice, defend the authority of international law. China hopes that the International Criminal Court will uphold an objective and fair position, exercise its powers in accordance with the law, comprehend and apply the Rome Statute and general international law in good faith and in compliance with unified standards.
We begin with the Public Prosecutor's Office of Venezuela that has issued a communique sanctioning student right-wing member Maria Corina Machado for her involvement in the approval of the wrongly named Bolivar Act bill approved by the U.S. House of Representatives, which violates the Venezuelan Constitution. The statement informs that a country that in the framework of the recent criminal actions deployed by the U.S. House of Representatives on the occasion of the approval of a bill which seeks to increase the catalog of illegal sanctions against the Venezuelan people and also intend to stain the name of our liberator Simon Bolivar, seriously violating the Constitution. The law and the sovereignty, therefore, in view of these facts, where sectors of the extreme right wing led by Maria Corina Machado and others have expressed their support for the same, it has decided to initiate an investigation against their affirmation defendant to be charged for her promotion and support of said legal absurdity that sponsors terrible criminal acts against the Venezuelan people. The communique stressed that the public pronouncements that the above mention has made regarding these unlawful bills seriously involved and constitute the commission of the crimes of treason established in Article 128 of the Penal Code, conspiracy with foreign countries established in Article 132 of the Penal Code, and association to commit crimes established in Article 37 of the Law Against Organized Crime. The official communique closes by assuring that the Public Prosecutor's Office, as the Director of the Criminal Investigation, as an organ of the citizens' power, guarantor of the faithful tradition of freedom, peace, independence, and sovereignty that characterize our republic, standing firm both in its duty to guarantee the justice of the country's people and the rule of law.